Cry started in 1979, right? And we forget now, in the context of the development sector and how it is structured today, we forget that in 1979, India was pretty much the Africa of the world, where funding was pouring into India. And nobody was really raising resources in India. And into that universe came Rippon Kapoor, who was just 25 years old, and he was an airline purser actually with Air India. So it's interesting that these names have been coming up today. And he started what was not the Rippon Kapoor Foundation and what was CRY, in a sense, Child Relief, now Child Rights in You. And I think at the heart of it really for CRY, and the reason I do believe that CRY is what it is today, is because he did that. He set up the organization CRY, and everything that we are is pretty much embodied in the name. Child now rights and you, and CRY, the organization, is really the and he set it up in a sense as a space, as a platform, as an institution. And remember, when he set it up with 50 rupees, right? But he had a vision. He had a large vision, much bigger than anyone could have imagined. And it was really, CRY was set up as an invitation, as an invitation to people to come in and offer of themselves the best that they had, their gifts, their talents, their resources, in a way that could be brought together and harnessed really to ensure the transformation of the lives of children. And I think because he started it as an organization that was child rights, a child relief in you, and because he set the mission at the heart of everything that we did, that pretty much drove everything that we did subsequently. So much of who Rippon was got woven into the very organization itself, into the DNA of the organization. So whether it was the belief that nothing is impossible, that every obstacle that comes our way is just an opportunity to do something different, whether it was the belief that Indian children are an Indian responsibility, whether it was the belief that India was rich in resources, we just had to figure out how to harness those resources and transform those resources for children's rights. All of that was very much woven into the DNA of the organization. I came in 1990 at a time when, again, actually, so much of what Rippon did was just so radical and bold, because in 1989, he started to look at moving CRY from being a volunteer-led organization, and basically people who had come in and volunteered their time, to actually building an institution, building an organization. And in fact, again, the connections are so interesting, because one of our first professional appointees actually was the executive assistant to Mr. Ratan Tata, Indira Rajadaksh. And she came in actually, and she was the one who took Rippon's, this vision that he had of building an organization, and she translated it actually into almost like brick and mortar and systems and processes and ways in which to bring in professionals. You remember in 1989, there was like a firewall, almost like the Great Wall of China, between the development sector and the corporate sector. And CRY in many ways was pioneered that coming together and bringing people from these different sectors, into the organization. And people who came in, really, I mean, they were earning probably 3,000 rupees a month, and let me say that these were not just people who could afford to be in CRY. Very often the people who were there were people who were supporting their entire families on those salaries. So it was something about being moved very deeply by a mission that was larger than yourself, that brought us all together in that organization. I always call it was like a little microcosm at that time when I joined CRY, because you had everything from people who were there, the, in inverted commas, the jholawalas outside there in the field, to people coming in from the corporate sector, to artists, to designers, to finance people, to technology, and the weaving together of that and the bringing together of that was really that mission that we had, which was to transform the lives of children, to enable them to realize their full potential, and to create the space in which people could come in and realize their potential as change makers.